Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining me today, Josh Matheny, soon to be high school senior. Is that right?
I'm in my high school.
Committed to IU. I see your Indiana hat. Josh, how's it going, man?
I'm good. It's been a bit of a crazy week, but I'm excited to be here.
What's been crazy about your week so far?
Just the whole, COVID thing going on. Pool space in Western Pennsylvania has been limited, so it's kind of getting in pools when you can. So it's always kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think every swimmer out there can relate to that. Let's start with that. COVID started mid-March. Take me through your last, 4 or 5 months. Have you been able to swim? What have you been doing? And how have you kind of navigated this whole situation?
Yeah, so I was at the Pennsylvania State meet. We were halfway through it when we kind of got the call that everything was shutting down. So halfway through the meet, they told us all just go home. So we swam prelims on the last day, and then instead of getting to swim finals, we got a nice bus trip back to where I live. And so that was kind of the first sign, but we still had none of the pools had shut down yet. So we were kind of still hopeful that, it would just be like a small spike and we'll be back in the water. And then about 3 days later, everything around here shut down to the point where it was impossible to go anywhere. And so it was probably around a month and a half like that before someone on our team graciously let us use their kind of backyard pool. And so I tied myself to a tether and would just swim in place. And that was probably for a month again, before pools started opening up again. Our local country club, if you were a member, which luckily we are, let us kind of go and swim there in the morning before they opened up to the general public. So that was kind of when I first started training again. And then I would say 2 weeks later is when the whole team kind of got back into it.
Gotcha. And so how long has your whole team been back into it at this point?
Probably since beginning of June, I would say, would be when the whole team is able to kind of practice together.
Gotcha. And how big is your team, or the group that you train with anyway?
200. I'd say our team is probably 250 people total. But the group I've been training with, especially post-COVID, probably consists of 5 or 6 people, maybe 7. So it's been a really small group, but it's been a good time just because they're all some of my best friends. So
nice. Yeah. So, crazy times, a lot of people out of the water. Was there a period where you were having to stay in shape, keep fit, outside of the water? And if so, what did you end up doing? I know, some swimmers can run, some swimmers not so much. What's your stance?
Well, I'm not a runner by any stretch of the imagination. I went for a couple runs. Was not a huge fan, but it was definitely had to get the cardio piece. Mm-hmm. We have a stationary bike, so I rode that a little bit. And it was mostly but we just moved some of the equipment and workout equipment in my basement. So we just worked out in my basement pretty much for a couple months, and it wasn't ideal, but I don't think I lost too much fitness, but
that's really good to hear. I think a lot of people were able to stay in some kind of pretty top shape. And we've seen competitions come back, and some swimmers have really lit it up, and that's been super exciting. Have you guys had any sort of inter squad or meet, or what was it like just to get back in the water?
Yeah, funny you should bring that up. We actually had one last weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I swam the 100 and 200 breast, and it was definitely, because it was my first time racing since March. So it was definitely interesting to say the least. It was just, because there's obviously racing and training, which we do, but it's a whole lot different to actually throw a suit on and get an actual time. And it made me realize that I still have quite a long way to go to be back to kind of tip-top shape.
Yeah. How did the races themselves feel for you?
Um, Surprisingly, the 100 breast hurt more than the 200 breast, which is usually not the way it goes. I, I, I don't know. It just they felt sloppy. I for sure my turns were kind of just not great. My breakouts, my starts, it was just all kind of that stuff that when you race, you kind of perfect over like the year, so that your championship meet, it's like perfect. It was definitely like, oh boy, I haven't done this in a while.
Gotcha. um, so let's take it back a little bit now. I'm glad to hear that you've gotten to race. It's great that you are back with your team and training. Um, so yeah, again, let's take it back. When did you first start swimming? How did you get interested in it?
So, I actually played hockey, lacrosse, and I swam when I was little. But I was probably like 5 or 6, and my mom made me join the swim team because my older sisters were on it. I have 2 older sisters, and it was easier in her mind to have us all in the same place most days.
Hmm.
And she also made me swim so that when I would go on vacation with my family, I'd be able to swim like in the ocean or like just be able to keep up in the water. And so she made me swim, which I didn't like it very much when I was little. I thought the water was cold and didn't really ever see why I would ever like. It was never my intention to keep swimming past like probably 9 or 10. Um, but then I just started to fall in love with the sport. I started like really racing, and I remember I was 9 and made my first like zone meet, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And so that kind of started me like, thinking like, hey, I could maybe swim for real. And then it just kind of started snowballing when I'd start going to practice more and more, and I kind of fell in love with the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's I always find it interesting. I've never really been to the East. Beside, like I've been in New York a couple times,
Uh-huh.
but like you hear about lacrosse, hockey are
Yeah.
are a lot bigger there. It's like I'm from the Midwest. I live in Texas now. It's like you don't hear about those sports really much in those regions.
Yeah.
Um, so how big was that influence of those other sports that you were playing, and when did you kind of how long did you stick with them?
So I stuck with lacrosse through 7th grade and hockey through 8th. They were both. I mean, by the time I quit, I had already kind of given up on them, and but they were big influences, just especially when I was little, because I truly believe that when you're little, you should play as many sports as possible because it just helps you kind of develop as a person and find what you truly like doing. And so I mean, I tried every sport, but those were the kind of the 3 that I stuck with through 7th and 8th grade. But it definitely the hockey and lacrosse aspect definitely kind of taught me like team, because I mean swimming obviously is a team sport, and up through 8th grade I like it was all club, so I hadn't really realized how big the team aspect was through swimming yet. And so the hockey and lacrosse aspect definitely influenced my version of like my vision of what it means to be a team.
Yeah. And I mean, did you have a lot of other peers that were swimming that were playing lacrosse and hockey? Were you kind of the outlier in terms of sticking with swimming?
Yeah, in fact, none of my like really good school friends swim. Obviously I have my best friends on the swim team and stuff, but a lot of my good friends from school don't swim. But I'm pretty sure half the grade played lacrosse at one point. So it's kind of funny to like look back on those days when we all played lacrosse. But and then none of my friends really played hockey either. But my dad grew up playing hockey, so like that's kind of how that happened.
Gotcha. And so you kind of fully commit after 8th grade to swimming.
Mhm.
What was there like an aha moment? You talked about 9-year-old making your first zone team.
Yeah.
After that, was there a moment where you're kind of like, oh, okay, like you reached that next level?
Oh boy. I would probably say after my freshman year in Irvine, California, I swam the 100 breaststroke, and I kind of went from like I wasn't even seeded to make the A final, and then I was going in top seed against some like people who I had like watched swim for years, and was like, oh boy. But then I kind of came back at night, and I would consider that kind of my breakout onto like the big stage. I won, and I was like I mean, I couldn't believe it for like probably a week and a half of what had happened, but like, I would kind of consider that my like breakout onto the big stage.
Yeah. Was that at junior nationals?
Yeah, at junior nationals.
Okay. In 2018?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Nice. So were you always a breaststroker?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I mean, do you like the other strokes? Do you enjoy training the other strokes, or are the other strokes just like essentially a waste of time? You should just be swimming breaststroke.
I mean, I love swimming the other strokes. I'm not particularly compared to my breaststroke. I'm not particularly good at them, but it is always fun to swim at practice, and I love swimming the other strokes. I love swimming all four strokes, so it's not they're not a pain. I wish I could swim them more, but it is what it is.
Do you, tell me about your training. Have you been with the same club since you were 6, 7, 8?
So yes and no. So I used to belong where I live is Upper St. Clair, like county, sorry, township. And so we used to have. I'm trying to think how to word this. So we Western Pennsylvania, it's all high school swimming. It like was a huge focus on high school swimming growing up. And so every high school team had their own club team. And so we were like we were all a bunch of small teams that were all just kind of fighting each other. Just because if you swam on your high school team, you swam for that club team. And then probably 4 years ago, my high school team and then 2 other high school teams kind of decided like, hey, we should probably start focusing on USA swimming again. So we kind of broke the mold and like converged on to become peak what we are today. And so the coach has stayed the same. My coach has been Dave Shraven. Like the head coach of all the programs has been Dave Shraven as long as I can remember. So in that sense, it's been the same, but in the sense of swimming under the same name, no.
Gotcha. But so you've always been around kind of the same group of people.
Yeah.
Probably expanded a little bit when they all combined.
Yeah, when we all kind of converged, it expanded a lot, but I've grown up with some of the same kids. So yeah.
And so what is Dave's training like, especially, probably once you got into high school, kind of that top group, for your club, what was the training like for you there?
He really likes IM training is his main like goal. So even being a breaststroker, I train all 4 strokes. So he's a big believer in IM. And I think he does a really good job at mixing distance and like sprint. So we'll do, depending on the time of the year, we'll do like 7,000 to 8,000 yards a day. Or like some weeks he'll be like, okay, it's speed work week and we'll only do like 4,000 yards in a day. So it's a really wide range. But I feel like it really does help me keep my ability to swim the 100 and 200 at a solid level.
Yeah. Do you guys do doubles? What's your practice schedule like?
So during the school year, we'll have, obviously we train Monday through, actually we have Wednesdays off. We train every other day. And then we have doubles on Monday and Wednesday is when we have to go to morning practice, which is not my favorite thing, but so yeah, we'll train in the morning, Mondays and Wednesdays, and then obviously in the afternoon every day except for Wednesday. And then I usually lift Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So that's a busy Monday.
Yeah. No, Monday is, by the time I get to Monday afternoon practice, I'm hurting pretty bad.
Do you usually lift in the mornings as well or before?
No, I usually lift. Unfortunately, just the way like all the time stuff works and where the weight room is, I have to lift before I go and practice in the afternoon. So
yeah, that's a lot. And do you swim? Is the pool at your high school or do you have to drive to it?
So the thing about our site, obviously we had a ton of high schools combined, so we have quite a few different pools. So depending on the day, but I usually lift at my high school and then I practice at a high school that's probably 15 minutes away from where my school is. So
nice. Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad drive at all.
Do you have a big high school?
We're about 1,200, so no, not really at all.
Okay, nice. That seems like a good middle ground for.
Yeah, I mean we're not massive, but we're also not like tiny. We're just kind of mediocre.
Yeah. Again, I've never been to Pennsylvania as the state. And so I'm just interested in kind of like the culture, you know, you have a ton of high schools within like a very
Yeah.
small period. And yeah, it seems interesting. Do you feel like Pennsylvania was a good place to grow up? Do you feel like that's influenced your take on the world?
I don't know if I would say it's influenced my take on the world, but I mean, I can't imagine growing up anywhere else. I'm very happy I grew up where I did.
What have you enjoyed about that?
Well, just I don't know about the state of Pennsylvania as much as where I live. I live right outside of Pittsburgh,
Okay.
which has been so like I live probably 20 minutes out of downtown Pittsburgh, but at the same time, it's like I live in the suburbs. It's like it's a very suburban area.
Mhm.
So I kind of get to live both lives. Like I get to go and like see professional sports whenever I want to because it's 20 minutes away, but I also get to live like I don't live anywhere near a city. So it's been a really cool combination of both that I've definitely enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely. What is your favorite professional sport to go be a spectator at?
Definitely the Pittsburgh Steelers, the football team. So
That makes sense. That
yeah,
seems like it would be a good time.
yeah. Especially since our baseball team is not so good. The Pirates are usually pretty bad every year, so they're not too fun to go watch.
Gotcha. All right, so back to swimming. So you said high school swimming's huge.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your high school team and maybe one or two of your favorite memories that you've had, as swimming for high school.
So our high school team, for our school size, we've actually been really solid. We've pumped out a lot of pretty solid swimmers. But my favorite memories from high school swimming would probably have to be we won the medley relay my sophomore year. I was a breaststroker on it, so that is definitely one of my favorite races of all time. So it was just cool to be a part of that team. And another one would probably also be at States my freshman year. It was me and then two seniors and a junior who I really looked up to like growing up. So to kind of be on their relay, and we only won the B final, which is kind of time. It was like we still won the heat. So it was fun. It was kind of like a big hoorah to the two seniors who were on it. So it was an emotional like ending, but it was definitely two of my favorite moments were like those two.
Yeah, definitely. What makes high school swimming there such a big deal, or so emotional and so meaningful for you?
Uh, I'm honestly not sure why it's like in this area it's like the end all be all. It might just be because every single high school, just all the other sports really focus on their like district like level meet and their state level stuff. So it just kind of carries on to swimming that the school districts are like swim teams you'll focus on are your high school seasons. So it ends up being like every high school team brings their A game, which so if everyone else is going to, you kind of have to as well.
Hmm. Uh, I mean, it sounds like a fun thing. I think everyone who swam high school knows that that's kind of where you start to develop like the team mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
That gets you really hyped to swim in college, certainly,
Mhm.
if that's a goal. Especially that two medley relay where you guys won. Did you expect it going in? Take me through that race and what you guys were kind of thinking leading up to it.
So so the team to beat was North Allegheny, who was actually in our district as well. And they
Mhm.
had beaten us at our district meet they had out touched us. They ran our freestyler down because their freestyler split like 19 something. So it was like he ran him down and we were upset about it. We were like, it's okay, we'll get him at States, like it's all good. And we ended up getting third in the morning. So we were right next to them because they were the top seed. And just I remember looking over, standing on like as the backstrokers were like getting in the water, I was like, this is about to be some like crazy fast high school relay. So, and just stepping up on the block, and because our like front half, we had a really fast backstroker, and so we knew that at the 100 we were going to be ahead. It was just by how much, and it ended up being enough. And it came down. We won by like 3/100ths.
Oh
So
wow.
it was just, and the best part was the anchor was a freshman freestyler, and so I just remember like slamming on the block, like screaming, and the official like had to like tap my shoulder, be like chill out, like it's just a race. I was screaming so loud. I like couldn't talk after that, but it was by far the most exciting race I've seen in a high school meet.
I mean, that's awesome. If you're getting that excited, the officials are like, "Hey, man,
Yeah, yeah, they
let's
were
keep
like,
it clean.
please chill out. I was like, I'm sorry, but this is just like, this is too much.
It's not just a race."
Yeah.
That's how, that's awesome. I think we've all had, our high school races where we're so passionate about it. That's super cool. But so we get, the team dynamic of high school, kind of second to none.
Yeah.
It's very special. Let's get into you a little more. You said 2018, you have your breakout swim where you win 100 breast at junior nationals in Irvine. The next year you come into Palo Alto at the senior nationals. What were you thinking heading into that meet?
Well, the goal at senior nationals was just make Budapest. Like we were going into it like we just have to make the junior world team. That's like the main goal. I unfortunately got like a sinus infection like 2 days before the meet started. So that wasn't great. Wasn't ideal, but we still were like the goal remains the same. Like just got to make it, which probably isn't the best attitude to go into a meet with, but it was definitely relieving because I made the A final. I was the only 18 and under to make the A final in the 200 breast, so I got the spot in the 200 breast. So that was a huge relief to just kind of get that weight off my shoulder. Like I made the team. Now it's kind of just time to race. So that was a huge relief going to the final for sure. And then I just kind of got up and raced. I lost, but I gave my best shot at that nationals.
I mean, you were going up against a pretty stiff competition.
Yeah.
Tell me about that 200 breast final. I think Reese Whitley ended up coming out the win in that.
Yeah.
But how'd you feel? Was that was the first breaststroke race of that meet? How did you feel about your race? Knowing you had a sinus infection just a few days before.
Well, it was at the time. I mean, I had never raced, like that was obviously the biggest stage I had raced on. I had never raced like Reese or Daniel or any of them before. So I was definitely mentally, I was a little like, oh boy, this is like the big leagues. So it was definitely took me for a run. And just Reese's pullouts were just, I mean, I never seen anything like it. Like I dove in and I was like, I'm already that far behind after like the start. I was like, how is this even possible? And so that also kind of took me off guard. But he swam quite an amazing race also. And just, it was mentally, it took me off guard racing them, but it was also kind of unfortunate because I really like in my 200, I like to close as hard as I can. Mm-hmm. In my race at nationals, I feel like I didn't close quite as well as I could have. So that the way I swam it, I was a little upset with. So going into Budapest, I was definitely trying to work on a better strategy than kind of how I swam it at nationals. Yeah.
So you make the team in 100, 200, and 50, right?
Yeah. Somehow I made the 50.
And so you get to Budapest. It's your first Team USA trip. Kind of tell me was that your first time out of the country?
No, actually. I've been a few places around the world just on vacation. Mm-hmm. So it was my first time out of the country, but it was my first time outside of the country with like a goal in mind, which kind of made like, because normally when you fly out of the country, it's a long flight. You like, you're like, oh, it's whatever. I'll sleep when I get there and like, I'll eat whatever I want because it doesn't really matter. But like kind of sticking to like your sleep schedule and like your diet, even though you have to fly for like 10 hours it was definitely a challenge. But I knew going in that it'd be a challenge. So I was a little bit more prepared. Like I had some food that I like to eat on the plane and like I was kind of ready for it. Yeah.
Are you someone who sleeps on the plane normally? Did you sleep on this flight? Because that is a long flight.
Yeah. I pretty sure I slept because I'm kind of hazy, just kind of because plane sleep is like kind of, for me anyways, you kind of go in and out like, but I definitely was dozing, I would say. So that definitely helped the plane ride go by. But so.
Then you get to Budapest. I think you have like a couple days before the meet starts. What was the chemistry like with Team USA, and especially for it being your first trip with USA?
It was honestly one of the best experiences ever, even before we started racing. All the guys were just so cool. It was just such a good time to just hang out with everybody. And Carson and Luca were the captains, and they were probably the best captains like ever. Like they were super helpful. If you had any questions about like what was going on, they were like immediately there to help you, and they definitely helped everybody, I think, kind of succeed, and just like in the sense because there was a lot of new guys who was their first trip as well. So we were all kind of like starstruck at first, but they definitely kind of help us bring us like, hey, we're here, we gotta swim.
Yeah. And, from what I've gathered, it seems like that's kind of the culture of, we're doing it for USA. We need to get up and go. And so take me through your first race at that meet.
That would be the 100 breaststroke prelims. It was the first day, actually.
Okay.
I remember I was sitting in the ready room because I think I was seated fourth, and so I was in the last heat. And I remember watching the other American, Kevin Hausman, swim, and he like won his like prelim heat by like a pretty significant margin. I was like, dang, okay, Kevin, like I see you. And so I just remember watching and thinking, if he can do it, like I can get up and do it better. And so I got up and tried my best. He did end up beating me that morning. So he was going in semis first, but it was really cool to be going into semifinals with Kevin being 1-2. Be kind of that USA power. So we were excited about that.
Yeah, and then you have semifinals. What was that experience like?
So this was my first time swimming prelim, semi, and finals. But I've seen like interviews about it, and it was like have a good swim in the morning, have a great swim at semifinals, and then have the best swim at finals. But and so I kind of had that mental attitude like this is kind of my chance to practice racing at night in Budapest without like all the pressure of like the finals being here. So I kind of took the opportunity to like make sure I knew exactly what I was doing just because they ran the semifinals the same way they run finals. And so I was kind of like, it almost felt like almost like a little practice run. So it was just like the walkout, the preparation, like all the time and stuff I kind of used as like, so this is what the final is going to be like.
Mm-hmm. And then you get to the final.
Yeah.
Break that 100 breast final down for me.
It's a lot of it's a blur, if I'm being honest. I just remember standing behind the block because I was in 4 and Kevin was in 5, and I remember like being like, let's get it, like we got this. And then diving in, and then everything's kind of a blur until I touched the wall, and obviously I was so stoked to see like second place. I was like, that's amazing. Like I was running my best time. I was super excited, but it did sting a little bit to see like I got out touched by like a tenth or something. So that stung a little bit, but I mean, I was still super grateful to be in that like space at all. So I was very excited.
Yeah. And so you win your first medal for USA, and then you come right back in the 200. And again, you talked about wanting to have a better race plan than that. Take me through the final of the 200 breast.
Yeah. So I was in lane 3 and Shoma Sato was in lane 4, and everyone was focused on him. Everyone was like, oh, he's going to be like, it's him versus the clock. And I was a little personally hurt by that. I was like, I'm in the race too. Like I can do this. Obviously Team USA was cheering and everyone was like, you got this. But like for the most part, everyone was like, it's probably going to go to, I was like, it's okay. Like I'm going to just give it everything I got. And I remember turning it like the 150 and being like, he's right there. I was like, it's go time. And I just remember just turning it on as hard as I could and seeing myself just like each stroke getting closer and closer. I was like, holy crap, this is happening. And then I just kind of put my head down probably the last 10 meters and was just lunged at the wall and was like, man, I hope I did it.
and then you see the clock, and what's your reaction?
Disbelief. I was like speechless. I wasn't sure how to react. So I just kind of slapped the water. I was like, disbelief. I couldn't believe because 209 had been my goal time, but that was kind of like lofty. I was like, I want to go 209, but if I can, like, I don't know. And then to look up and see 209.4, I was like, oh boy.
I mean, obviously a testament to the work you put in heading into that meet. You win gold for Team USA. a huge accomplishment. My last question about that meet, tell me about the experience of being on a Team USA relay.
Nothing like it. And nothing, even being on like the high school relay I was describing, feels like amateur compared to like, especially our mixed medley, which I think we swam exactly a year ago today, which is kind of funny. So that relay in particular, because we won and broke the junior world record, and it was just like the feeling of like, even just sitting in the ready room, I was like, these are my fellow teammates. I was like, I'm going to give literally every ounce of energy I can to make sure that we like win. And I ended up splitting my best time by like almost a second. So I was very stoked because I had just swam the 100 breast and then got out to go into the ready room. So it was like I had literally swam and then went my best time again by like almost a second. So I was like, my coach like yelled, the coaches yelled down when I split, and I like laughed and was like, there's no way that's what I just won. But
okay, I lied. One more last question about this meet. It just, we talked about the energy of like a high school state meet. What's the energy like at a junior world championships? I just talked to Jake McGahee the other day, and he was like, this is essentially like the world championships. Like the energy is crazy. And yeah, so tell me about just stepping on deck for finals, that experience.
Well, the moment that really brought it like to life to me is you always watch it on TV, and you always hear like those annoying horns in the background. I don't know, for me, like I always hear like the annoying zoo horns or whatever they're called,
right.
And that kind of signifies like there's foreign people there, because I guess it's kind of an American thing, but I always like feel like that's more of like a foreign thing. And I remember standing behind the block and just hearing all the horns and stuff and thinking I've made it to like, this feels like a world championship, just because like the building the entire night felt like it was just about to explode after every swim, just because they were so fast.
I mean, that sounds like an amazing experience. I've never been to a junior world championships. I'm hoping I get to go to one day. They sound awesome.
Yeah, they're fun.
So to wrap things up, to wrap this conversation, like we said, you're headed to Indiana in a year. You've got your senior year of high school right now. Tell me your situation moving forward in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. I'm guessing, you guys are back in the water, but what's school looking like for you? Do you have any goals with kind of all this uncertainty, and what's the future looking like headed into the next couple months?
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new plan, just because of how, like, I had, like, most people had a plan, because leading up to Olympic trials and everything. So I kind of had a plan for my senior year, just kind of based off of, like, I would be a little bit more focused on high school, just because that kind of be my final hoorah. But now the plan has changed. So obviously the big goal at the end of the year is the Olympic trials. But school-wise, they've announced that I'm going to school 2 days a week and then have to do online for 3 days a week. So I have school Thursday and Friday, which for Monday, Tuesday, but not that it really matters. But so I have school 2 times a week and then online 3. So that's kind of where that situation is.
Gotcha. Yeah. And do you, just for the next couple months, do you have any goals or kind of anything that's like, okay, this is like more of a short-term thing that I can work on in the next couple months?
Probably. Do you mean meet wise or like practice wise?
Either or. Probably
meet wise would be get closer to my best times in meets, just because from an in-season perspective, I'm not great. That's definitely something I struggle with, is especially long course, is like at championship meets, I tend to drop a lot, but during the year, I struggle to get anywhere near my best time. Mm-hmm. So my goal would definitely be to kind of get closer to my best times in season. And then practice-wise, kind of going off that, is be more consistent in practice. That's probably like my number one flaw right now, is that sometimes in practice I'll be going like 32 in the 50 breast from a push, and then other times I'll be going 36 or 37, and it's just like it's all over the place. And the weird part is the stroke count and like the tempo is all the same, just sometimes it's faster. It's like it doesn't make any sense, because I'll be like Coach Dave, like, why am I swimming so slow? So we'll watch a 50 and it'll be the exact same stroke count and the exact same like tempo on my breaststroke, and you'd be like, you're just not moving as fast for some reason. So probably consistency would be the number one goal of this year.
Yeah. I think breaststroke is very finicky. It's a hard stroke to be consistent with, and I think that gets better with age, honestly. My older brother, he's 30 years old. He still trains at a high level, still wants to go to Olympic trials, and he was in the same boat, and I think it gets better.
I hope so. I've talked to Coach Luz about it because that's something he said is to kind of try to be more consistent. He said it will come just as you get older, you'll be more consistent, but it's definitely still a goal of mine.
Definitely. Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking to you for a little bit, and I hope you're able to train well, to go through school and have a productive few months.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been fun.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.